In the last section, we put together Docker files for the client, the server, and the worker projects. Now that we've got Docker files for each of those put together that are specifically made for the development environment, we're going to start putting together a Docker Compose file as well, just as we did on the previous application. Remember, the entire point of this Docker Compose file is to make sure that it's a lot easier to start up each of these different images as containers with the appropriate arguments. For example, we need to make sure that the Express server is available on some given port. Same thing with React Server. We need to make sure that the worker has the ability to connect over to Redis. We need to make sure that the correct environment variables for connecting to Redis and Postgres are provided to the Express server and the worker as well. And so this is all configuration that is going to be done inside of our Docker Compose file. All right. Now the first container that we're going to add of our own custom project to our Docker Compose file is going to be the server process. So just that Express server by itself. At the same time, we're also going to start adding the Postgres server, or the Postgres database, and the Redis database to the Compose file as well. So in our development environment, we will have a complete copy of the Express server, a complete copy of Redis, and a complete copy of Postgres, and they're all going to work together very nicely. Once we get these three pieces put together, we'll then come back and start to add in the React application, the worker, and the Nginx server as well. All right, now I've got a couple notes on this diagram right here of some of the things that we need to think about inside of the Compose file. So we know that we need to add in Postgres. We know that we need Redis in there as well. And in both those cases, we need to figure out what image we should use for both of them. For the server, we probably need to specify some of the options that we had seen on the last Docker Compose file we put together. So we probably need to specify some build options. For example, what Docker file to use. We probably need to set up some volumes to make sure that anytime we change some of our source code, the container source code updates as well. And then this is going to be something that we have not done before, but this is going to be something that becomes very important in this application. We're going to have to start thinking about specifying some environment variables for the server as well. Just in case you downloaded the checkpoint zip file and you didn't go through the assembly of the server with me, I encourage you to open up the server directory right now. And inside of here, you'll see a keys.js file. This right here is a listing of environment variables that we need to make sure are set up for this container. So the server application needs to be given a Redis host, a Redis port, a Postgres user, Postgres password, Postgres port, all these different environment variables. They all need to be passed into this container when it is executed. And so that's something that we're going to be doing via our Docker Compose file. But again, we'll get to that a little bit later on in the process. Right now, let's get started by creating the Docker Compose file, and we'll add a little bit of basic configuration in there for the Postgres and the Redis applications. All right, so inside of my root project directory, I'm not inside of any folder right now. In my root project directory, I'll make a docker-compose.yml file. Inside of here, we'll put down some of the immediate configuration that we know that we always add to every Docker Compose file. I'll say version is 3, like so. After that, we'll then start to specify the list of different services that should be made available when we use this Docker Compose file as a starting point for our application. So the first service that we're going to define will be a Postgres instance. So I'm going to give this a name of Postgres. Remember, that's the name of the service as it's been added to our Docker Compose file now. So for the Postgres project, we don't have to specify the build options or volumes or anything like that we did previously. Instead, the only thing we need to specify here is the image that we want to use for this particular service. And so in this case, we're going to go up to Docker Hub. We're going to take a look at the different versions of Postgres that are available, and we'll specify one to be used as the base image for our project. So inside my browser, I'm going to navigate to hub.docker.com. I'll find Explore on the top right-hand side. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we'll very quickly see, what was the first one? Postgres. Want to make sure I wasn't looking at Redis. So right here on this list, you should see Postgres official very quickly pop up. And then under the full description for Postgres, we'll see a couple of the different versions that are available. At this point in time, the latest tag is associated in here. Where is it? With, here we go, version 10 of Postgres. Now, if you see a latest tag being applied to version 11 or even version 12 at some point in the future, that's totally fine. We are not using any advanced features of Postgres right now, and so you can safely use the latest tag, probably without any issue whatsoever. So back inside of my Docker Compose file, I'm going to say that the image to use for the Postgres service will be Redis, or excuse me, not Redis, I keep mixing the two up, Postgres:\latest. Oh, latest, like so. So now anytime that Docker Compose starts up, it's going to try to create a Postgres service using the image Postgres, and it'll use the version of it tagged as latest. Let's very quickly test this out. So I'll save this file. I'll go back over to my command line. I'm inside of the complex directory, and I see the Docker Compose file inside of here. So I will run Docker Compose up. That will automatically pull down the Postgres image and start up a Postgres database on my machine. And so after a little bit of download and setup, you should eventually see a line that says something like database system is ready to accept connections down here. All right, so that's it for Postgres. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of is that on the Postgres document or the repository, you can scroll down quite a bit, and down here, you'll eventually see something that says start a Postgres instance, and it shows you how to execute the Docker run command while specifying the Postgres password to use right here. And if you scroll down even more, you'll see that they are showing a lot of different optional values you can pass in as environment variables so that you can customize the way in which this Postgres image behaves. So we are going to make use of these in just a little bit, so I just want you to be aware that we're going to come back to this page pretty quickly and reference some of this further documentation. But for right now, let's take a quick pause. When we come back to the next section, we'll start setting up our Redis service as well. So I'll see you in just a minute.